Hello everyone, Paul Elam here with another installment from A Voice for Men. Today some words of wisdom for the ladies and a little note of caution before I start. If this doesn't apply to you, don't be offended by it. You know, there is an incalculable amount of advice in the world for women on relationships with men. Scarcely an issue of Cosmo or any other women's magazine has been printed that doesn't contain articles by some woman or another claiming to give you all the hows on the man in your life. How to snag and keep a man. How to get him to pop the question. How to drive him wild with desire. How to catch him in a lie. How to get him to treat you like a queen, or how to tell if he's cheating. And it's not just women's rags, it's almost everywhere. You can't even check your email anymore without some headline grabbing your eye that is also pitching the now ubiquitous how to get what you want from a man advice. Almost all of it written by and for women. The fact that so many of you are still reading this stuff might point to the idea that whatever you are getting out of it isn't doing a lot of good. So I thought I would offer up some self-help magic for the ladies about men from a man's point of view. Let's call it How to Tell If He Hates Your Fucking Guts. Catchy, eh? I know I'm just a man, and as such not as sympathetic to the need for both constant approval and unconditional tolerance for bullshit that has likely left you batting squat in the man department, but I do know that love, at least as far as emotions go, is more conducive to a healthy romantic life than, say, loathing is. And I happen to be an expert on how to prevent that hate monster from eating up your dreams of the future. And I won't leave you hanging by just pointing at the problem either. For each sign of infectious hate that I identify, there will be a clear-cut plan of action to ensure you will ameliorate the problem and move forward with a more loving relationship. You can trust Dr. Paul to cover all the bases. Your advantage here, ladies, resides in the fact that men are quite simple. You won't need to buy a study guide or hire a relationship coach to ferret out the truth about how that hombre in your life feels. You just need to be willing to observe and digest what is right in front of you. Your man isn't prone to subtlety. He doesn't hint at hating. He radiates it if you're just paying attention. That being said, let's get to work. Here are the three most common signs that your man spits upon the ground on which you walk and what you can do about it. Sign number one. He quits fucking you and or starts fucking someone else. If your man isn't fucking you, there is definitely something wrong, and there are only three possible explanations for it. One, he's gay and has been hiding it. Two, he has a physical problem that needs medical intervention. Or three, the thought of touching you makes his dick wilt like a boutonniere in a blast furnace. Since number three is the only one you can possibly do anything with, my solution will be confined to that problem. First, you may need to consider that 4 hours of bitching is not foreplay. Now, some guys are so sex-driven that they will actually fuck you while you're bitching, but you should also know that they're imagining you're someone else while they're doing it, maybe even your younger sister. There are, however, a lot of other guys that lose the amorous mood by the time you've reached bitch number 17 on your much longer list of complaints. To them, there's a big difference between whispering sweet nothings in his ear and yelling "you're nothing" at him from across the room. What you can do about this is simple, assuming you can't shut up. Ladies, organize. Take a minute or two out of each day to make a list of things about him that dissatisfy you, and then heap them on him all at once. You will find the list reusable because it will only contain things that you have been repeating since 3 months into the relationship. As he continues to reveal his imperfections to you, you can just add to the list. Oh, and try to get it all out in 7 minutes or less. Brevity is bliss, in the bedroom and out. Timing is also important. Give him an hour or so to unwind after coming home from work. Then, after you decide where he's taking you for dinner, you can use the car ride to get in your digs. It's a great place for you to say what needs to be said. He's trapped with you next to him. You can keep nagging out of the home, and if you finish your little tirade before you get to the restaurant, you can set about taking the evening in a much more pleasant direction. Additionally, you may have to skip a day of berating him here and there. Also, and this is the hard part, you will need to occasionally point out some things he does right, just to make things look balanced. Now for sign number two. He does anything, and I mean anything he can, not to come home. If you met your man at a Sierra Club convention and he suddenly takes an interest in hunting wild hog with a crossbow for, say, 300 days a year, well, that is one of those not so subtle signs I was talking about. As you have surely heard from some of the women writers, men like to retreat into their caves. Whatever your man likes to do for an outside interest, his favorite spot in his home is something sacred to him. So if he finds all manner of reasons not to be there, then there's a problem, and most likely that problem is you. Now, ostensibly, you can just refer to the solutions to problem number one for this. After all, being present is one of the few hard prerequisites for sex. If you can modify your behavior enough that it will induce him to walk in the door in the first place, it will solve problem number two and go a long way toward helping with number one as well. So the next time you find yourself wanting to ask your man why he doesn't want to spend more time at home with you, first take a quiet moment and ask yourself, why should he? Oh, and on answering yourself, doing it honestly would be a plus. Oh, and by the way, there is a link in the top right to some more support. It's some more detailed advice on how not to nag so much. There's some really good stuff there, but I encourage you to skip over the parts that, of course, blame him for everything you do and just focus on being less of a pain in the ass. Okay, now for the final sign number 3. He hauls off and smacks the living shit out of you. Now, this far from subtle sign that your man hates your fucking guts comes generally from one of two places. One, he's an abusive asshole and hates everyone, including himself. Or two, you are the asshole and he got one too many rounds of your abuse and snapped. Now, if your situation is the former, and you are really sure of that, then your solution is simply a better man. But if your situation is the latter, then your only solution is to be alone. Why? Because you are either physically, verbally, or emotionally such a complete asswipe that anyone around you will eventually turn mean. It doesn't justify hitting you. Nothing justifies violence against any man or woman. But sooner or later you will have to face the fact that other than hitting you, his main mistake was that he didn't kick your ass to the curb before things went too far. He was likely just trying to do the right thing but with the wrong person. And your treatment of him leaves you in a position that self-help articles sandwiched between lipstick ads aren't going to help. You know, the premise is simple here. If you want respect, be respectful. If you want to be treated well, then treat him well. If you want love, then give it. The only relationship tools that are worth anything are the ones found in the mirror. And 10,000 issues of Cosmo ain't getting anyone around that one. Ever. And you know, truth tell, you should drop the Cosmo reading anyway. Articles on how to get what you want from a relationship aren't what anyone needs. In fact, running around trying to scheme ways to get only what you want from someone else is the problem. It is the chosen, narrow-minded path of the selfish and undeserving. It's all about what you give, baby, and what you're willing to give. Take it from Dr. Paul. Oh, and a little footnote, I'm not a real doctor, but I play one on the internet. And that, gentlemen and ladies, is the end of another installment from A Voice for Men. I hope you've enjoyed listening, and as always, see you next time.